All right, let's jump right in. Think about this for a second. Your schoolwork, your social life, your future job. What's the one thing they all have in common? They all run on networks. So today, we're going to break down how to defend your digital life. Because let's be real, pretty much everything depends on it.
So here's the reality check. Every single email, every file you upload, every message you send, it's all just data zipping down a digital highway. But what happens if someone messes with that highway? We're not just talking about a lost assignment. No, we're talking about lost opportunities, lost money, and a massive, massive headache. The stakes are way higher than you probably think.
And that really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? The very thing that makes networks so amazing, being able to share anything instantly, is also their biggest risk. The moment we connect, it's like we're opening a door, and that open door makes our data vulnerable. It is a classic double-edged sword.
So what this all boils down to is a constant digital tug of war. On one side, you've got all these threats trying to bust their way in. And on the other side, well, that's us, with our defenses, our digital shields and walls that we use to fight back and keep our data safe.
Okay, this lays out the battlefield perfectly. Over on one side, you've got the attacker's favorite tools, malware, hacking, and phishing. And on our side, our first line of defense, firewalls, antivirus, and of course, strong passwords. Let's dig into the threats first so we know what we're really up against.
First up, malware. You've heard this word a million times, I'm sure. It's really just a catch-all term for any kind of malicious software. Code that's built specifically to mess things up. And this includes everything from a simple virus that corrupts your files to something way scarier, like ransomware, which literally locks up your computer and holds it hostage until you pay.
And then there's phishing. Now this one's a little different. It's less about fancy code and more about playing mind games. It's a trick, really. An attacker pretends to be someone you trust, like your bank or your school, and they try to fool you into just giving them your password. And you know what? It's incredibly common because, honestly, it works way too often.
So how do we fight back? Well, the good news is the tools are simpler than you might think. First, firewalls. Think of them like a bouncer at the door of your network, deciding who gets in and who doesn't. Second, antivirus software. That's like your security system, always scanning for known bad guys. And third, this is the big one that you control, strong passwords combined with multi-factor authentication. That just means proving it's you in a second way, like with a code sent to your phone. Doing this one simple thing is an absolute game changer.
But, individual tools are only part of the story. Real security also relies on a bigger layer, the established rules and policies that run the whole show. These are kind of like the formal rules of the road that are there to keep everyone safe.
A really key idea here is setting access levels. The goal is something called least privilege. Sounds kind of technical, but it's super simple. You only give people access to the exact data they absolutely need to do their job, and nothing more. That way, if one account gets hacked, the attacker doesn't get the keys to the entire kingdom. They're just stuck in one tiny room.
Next up is encryption. Simply put, this is just the process of scrambling your data into a secret code. So even if a hacker manages to intercept your message while it's traveling across the network, all they're going to see is a bunch of useless gibberish. It's like sending a letter in a language that only the person receiving it can actually understand.
And this is a brilliant little example of how it works. It's called the Caesar cipher, and it just shifts each letter a certain number of places down the alphabet. So here, byte size becomes, G Nij Naj, just by shifting every letter forward 5 spots. Now, modern encryption is way more complex than this, obviously, but the basic idea of disguising the information is exactly the same.
Finally, there's the Acceptable Use Policy, or AUP. I can almost guarantee you've signed one of these if you've ever used a school or work computer. It's just the official rule book for using the network, and it's designed to protect both you and the organization.
And these rules, they're almost always just common sense. Don't share your password, which you'd be surprised how often that happens. Don't install sketchy software you found online, and report anything that looks even a little bit weird. Just following these simple guidelines is a huge step in keeping everyone safe.
Okay, so that's all the theory. Now let's see what happens when these ideas crash into the real world. We're going to look at 2 huge cyber attacks that show exactly how one tiny vulnerability can explode into a massive crisis.
Take a look at these. First, an Ontario school board, totally crippled by a simple phishing attack that worked because people were reusing passwords. Then, there was the huge Colonial Pipeline shutdown in 2021. You might remember this. It actually caused gas shortages. The cause? a single compromised password on an account that didn't have MFA turned on. The lesson here is just stunning. In both cases, the weak spot was terrifyingly simple, and the fix was something we've already talked about today.
So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but that's a big company. That's not me. And that's where you'd be wrong. Every single one of these concepts applies directly to your life right now.
When you start your next co-op job, you're going to sign an AUP. Your college portal, it uses encryption, that's the little S in HTTPS, to protect your grades and personal info. And if you have a side hustle, well, you're the one who's responsible for protecting client data with strong passwords and MFA. This isn't abstract stuff, it's your daily reality.
So, here's the crucial point, the main takeaway from all of this. Yes, the threats out there are constant, and they're getting more sophisticated. But our best defenses aren't some complicated tech wizardry. They are simple, fundamental habits that we practice consistently every single day. Which brings us to the final question I have for you. Looking at everything we've covered, MFA, stronger passwords, being more careful with emails, which one habit will you actually start today? Because the security of your schoolwork, and yeah, your future career, it really does start with that one single choice.